Dust clung to the air like smoke as the auction yard buzzed with half-hearted murmurs and the slap of boots against dry earth. The heat was already oppressive, warping the air above the rusted pens and casting a wavering veil over the animals lined up for sale. One pen, at the far end, was quieter than the rest, not because there were fewer people near it, but because of the animal inside. The horse was a monster, some whispered, a beast with fire in its blood and murder in its eyes. Black as night, tall, lean, with muscles like coiled wire and eyes that never stopped moving, panicked, furious, and proud. Flies danced around the sweat on his flanks, but he didn't twitch. He stood rigid, tail flicking, ears pinned back, nostrils flared, his every breath a warning. No one wanted him. Not anymore. He nearly killed a man last week, someone said, scratching his beard with a sunburned hand. Should have been put down, another grunted. Can't fix what's born broken. The auctioneer didn't waste time trying to dress him up. Next, he barked, smacking his clipboard. Lot 42. Untamed stallion. 6 years old. Take your chances. Silence. Then a voice, barely louder than a whisper. $10. Heads turned. The crowd parted slightly. A boy stepped forward. He couldn't have been older than 12 or 13. Small, thin, sun-kissed skin under shaggy brown hair. He wore jeans 2 sizes too big, a shirt with more patches than fabric, and boots so worn the soles flapped slightly when he walked. His eyes, though, they were sharp, still, strangely calm. The auctioneer blinked. You say something, boy. I'll take him. $10. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Not cruel exactly, but disbelieving. The kind of laugh people make when they think something sad is also a little ridiculous. Son, the auctioneer said, leaning on the railing, you got any idea what you're a skin for? This here's not a school pony. He's dangerous. Wild as they come. The boy didn't answer. From behind him, an older man muttered to another. That's Tommy Ridge's kid. You remember Ridge? The horse whisperer. Yeah, came the reply. Died in that barn fire last year. Poor boy ain't spoken much since. The auctioneer sighed. You got money, kid? The boy reached into a cracked leather pouch tied to his belt and slowly counted out a $10 bill and 2 crumpled ones. He pushed them forward across the wooden post. A long pause. The auctioneer took the money. Well, he said slowly, he's yours. Gasps. A few claps. Mostly uneasy silence. The pen gate groaned as it swung open. The black horse turned, ears forward now, eyes wild. He charged forward, stopping just inches from the boy. Dust shot up. The crowd gasped again. Someone screamed, but the boy didn't move. He just looked up into the horse's face. The stallion's chest heaved, his front leg pawed the dirt, and his lips curled slightly to show yellow teeth. But the boy stood still as stone. I'm not going to hurt you, he said softly. And I know you won't hurt me. A flick of the ear. The horse didn't move. The boy reached up, not fast, not slow, until his hand rested gently on the frayed rope halter that hung around the horse's neck like a shackle. The stallion snorted, stiffened, but didn't pull away. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Tommy turned and began to walk, one step at a time. The rope slacked between them. The horse hesitated, then followed. Not tamed, not trusting, just curious enough not to bolt. They passed the crowd in silence. Tommy didn't look at anyone, but the townspeople stared after him, unsure what they'd just seen. Old man Carter spat into the dirt. That boy's gonna get himself killed. Or he's gonna do what his daddy did, someone replied. Tommy didn't hear them. His heart was pounding in his chest, but his face was calm. The barn loomed in the distance, old, leaning, barely able to stand, much like him. It had belonged to his father once. Now it belonged to no one. He led the horse inside, gently tying the rope to a broken post. The animal snorted and reared once, testing the strength of his bonds. Then he settled, uneasy but silent. Tommy sat down on a pile of hay and looked at the creature in front of him. His arms were scratched. His knees ached. His shirt was soaked with sweat. But for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel hollow. He pulled a faded leather notebook from his pocket, his father's. The cover was scorched and curling. Inside were pages of scribbled notes, training routines, little sketches. A page was marked with a ribbon. Asterisk, the ones most worth saving are the ones too broken to ask for it. Asterisk. He looked at the horse again. The stallion was still watching him. I'm going to call you Midnight, he whispered. The horse didn't react. Tommy leaned back, arms behind his head, eyes on the rafters above. Holes in the roof let shafts of light in, illuminating floating dust and silence. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. Maybe the horse would turn on him. Maybe the town would take him away. Maybe he wasn't enough. Maybe everything they said was true. But he'd seen something in those eyes. Just for a second. Not rage. Not madness. Just fear. The same kind that had lived inside him since the fire. And for the first time since that night, Tommy felt something unfamiliar. It wasn't confidence, not yet. It wasn't hope. But it was the start of something. He smiled just barely. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the broken windows of the barn. And inside, a boy and a beast, both untamed, both wounded, breathed the same air, in the same silence, on the same page of a story just beginning. The morning sun cut through the gaps in the barn's sagging roof, painting gold streaks across the dusty floor. Tommy stirred awake in the hay, his back stiff, arms curled around his father's notebook, like it might vanish if he let go. For a moment, he forgot where he was. Then the creak of rope and a low, warning snort reminded him. Midnight was watching. The stallion hadn't moved far in the night. He stood taut, like a coiled spring, his black coat gleaming with dried sweat. The rope tied to the old post had frayed even more from the strain. His eyes followed every movement Tommy made, sharp and untrusting. Tommy stood slowly, brushing hay from his shirt. He didn't speak. Just grabbed the bucket by the door and walked to the well. The water was cold, and the bucket handle bit into his hand, but he didn't flinch. The whole walked back. He hummed a tune his mother used to sing. Low, steady, simple. Midnight's ears flicked. That was something. He placed the bucket inside the pan and stepped back. The horse didn't move. Only after Tommy sat down again, quiet, patient, did Midnight inch forward, nostrils flaring, neck extended. He drank like he expected it to vanish at any moment. That's good, Tommy murmured. You're thirsty. I get it. The horse raised his head, water dripping from his chin. For a heartbeat, their eyes met. The moment passed. Tommy pulled the notebook from his coat and flipped to a page labeled Asterisk Day 1. Trust through time. Asterisk, his father's handwriting was jagged but steady. The words felt like instructions from a ghost. Asterisk, sit near. Say little. Breathe the same air. Asterisk. So he did. By midday, the heat was heavy again. Sweat rolled down Tommy's back. Midnight paced the pen, agitated. Tommy knew the signs, nervous energy, fight or flight. But no bolts yet. No charge. That was something, too. Boy. The voice startled him. He turned to see a tall, wiry figure leaning against the barn door. The man's clothes were clean, but his eyes looked tired, sunken beneath the brim of a faded hat. He carried a bottle, half full, and leaned on a cane that didn't match his age. Tommy tensed. The man nodded toward Midnight. That him? Tommy didn't answer. I figured, the man said, stepping forward slowly. Name's Jack. Used to train horses. Back when my bones weren't full of regret. He stopped just outside the pen. Midnight snorted at him, pawed the ground. You bought yourself a problem, Jack added. Tommy looked back down at the notebook. Jack chuckled. That your daddy's? He didn't wait for a reply. He was the best. Smartest man I ever met with a rope in his hand. You're his boy, all right. Same eyes. Tommy stayed silent, jaw tight. Jack took a swig. You're trying the soft method, huh? That horse will eat you alive. I'm not trying to break him, Tommy said quietly. I just want him to know he's safe. Jack looked at him for a long while. The kind of look that weighed a person, not just watched them. Then, wordlessly, he pulled a small bundle from his coat and tossed it at Tommy's feet. A lead rope, weathered, but strong. Just in case. Jack muttered. That halter's not going to hold forever. He turned to leave, then stopped. The town's already talking. Sheriff thinks you're playing with fire. You've got days, not weeks. Tommy's stomach dropped. What happens if I fail? Jack didn't look back. They take him, and not to another home. The words settled like stone in Tommy's chest. As the day wore on, Midnight grew restless. He kicked at the boards, paced with more aggression. Tommy tried to speak, but the horse ignored him, lost in panic. Shadows lengthened on the walls, and with each passing hour, Tommy felt the pressure mounting. That evening, he tried again, this time holding out a handful of oats in his palm. Just a little, he said softly. You don't even have to come close. The horse didn't budge. He waited. A full minute. Then 2. Finally, the horse stepped forward. 1 step. 2. Head low. Then stopped. Tommy's hand trembled slightly, but he kept it steady. Another step. Midnight reached forward and snorted, shaking his head violently. He reared slightly, hooves crashing down just inches from Tommy's foot. Tommy flinched. The oats spilled to the ground. I didn't mean to scare you, he whispered, his throat tight. The horse stood stiff again, muscles quivering. Tommy bent down, scooped the spilled oats into a tin, and set it beside the pen. He stepped back, hands raised, eyes soft. I'm not like them, he said. I won't whip you. I won't yell. You don't owe me anything. Midnight didn't move. Later, the boy sat outside the barn, back against the wall, watching the stars wink into the sky. His knees were scraped. His shoulders ached, but there was something else beneath the fatigue. A flicker. Not hope, not quite, but purpose. He looked down at the notebook. 1 sentence on the corner of the page was written in different ink, as though added later. Asterisk, trust is slow, but it's worth the wait. Asterisk. Inside the barn, Midnight shifted. The rope creaked gently. Tommy closed the notebook, clutching it to his chest. I don't care if they don't believe in you, he whispered to the stars. Because I do. The wind moved softly across the field, rustling weeds and the ragged edges of the barn's roof. In the dark, the boy and the horse shared another silent night, both wounded, both waiting, neither quite alone. The sun rose angry and red on the 3rd morning, casting sharp shadows across the dusty yard. Tommy stood just outside the pen. The lead rope Jack had given him coiled in one hand. Midnight stared at him from the other side, ears flicking, nostrils twitching. The stallion's hooves were stained with dried mud, his flanks still tense, though his eyes no longer blazed with the same feral fire. Tommy took a breath and stepped forward, his boots crunching softly over the straw-strewn ground. He didn't try to approach directly. Instead, he circled wide, letting Midnight track him, never forcing the distance to close. It was a dance they'd started the day before, careful and uncertain. Every step forward meant a risk, every gesture a test of something deeper than skill, something like trust. He stopped a few feet from the stallion, letting the rope hang loose at his side. I won't grab you, he said quietly. You get to choose. Midnight didn't move, but his muscles didn't ripple with panic this time. Tommy took a slow step closer, then another. The rope dragged behind him like a serpent. With a calm he didn't quite feel, he reached out and let his fingers hover just inches from the horse's neck. Midnight flinched, but didn't bolt. I know they hurt you, Tommy whispered. I don't know who or why, but I see it in your eyes. A memory rose, uninvited, of fire crackling in wood beams, the smell of smoke thick in his lungs, his father's voice yelling his name through the haze. He pushed it down. Not now. You and me, we both got scars, he said, his voice tight. But I think we could help each other stop being afraid. Midnight stepped back, not out of fear, but caution. The gesture wasn't rejection. Tommy let his hand fall and nodded. That was enough for today. By noon, the sheriff showed up. He leaned on the fence like it was his job to judge. Clock's ticking, kid. You've got one more day. Tommy didn't look at him. He's making progress. Doesn't look like much. He let me touch his neck. The sheriff raised an eyebrow. And we're supposed to forget the broken fences, the threats, the history? That horse nearly blinded a man last year. Tommy didn't flinch. He was cornered. You're 12. 13. Doesn't matter. You think you're going to fix him with a soft voice and a rope. No, Tommy said. I think he's fixing me." The sheriff opened his mouth, then shut it. He stared at the boy for a long moment before muttering, "You've got until sundown tomorrow. After that, he's out of your hands." That night, Tommy didn't sleep. He sat by the stall, legs crossed, eyes wide in the dark. Midnight didn't lie down either. They existed in a restless silence, both of them aware of what was coming. Tommy opened the notebook, flipping to the last few pages, ones he hadn't dared read before. There, scrawled in jagged ink, was a note his father had written the night before the fire. Asterisk, "There's a horse coming tomorrow. Broken. Dangerous, they say. But I've seen that look before. It's not rage, it's fear. The kind no one talks about. The kind that eats you from the inside." Asterisk. Tommy's eyes blurred with tears. This horse had been meant for his father. The same horse that had ended up passed from hand to hand, each more brutal than the last, until he became a ghost of what he was meant to be. Tommy shut the notebook, his chest aching. "I won't let them end you," he said quietly. "I won't let you die for being scared." In the stillness, Midnight moved. He stepped closer, slow and deliberate, and lowered his head toward the boy. Tommy didn't reach out this time. He just closed his eyes and waited. He felt breath on his hand. That morning, they tried something new. Tommy entered the pen with the lead rope again, but this time, Midnight didn't back away. The boy raised the halter slowly, eyes steady, heart pounding. "Let me do this," he whispered. "Let me show them." He slid the halter over the stallion's face. Midnight twitched but held still. With trembling fingers, Tommy fastened the strap and stepped back. The horse didn't panic. Tommy felt a grin break across his face. He walked a small circle, and to his amazement, the horse followed, awkward, hesitant, but present. Jack showed up late in the morning, leaning harder on his cane than before. He didn't speak at first, just watched, arms crossed, face unreadable. Then he said, "You just did in 3 days what most grown men couldn't do in 3 months." Tommy looked up. He just needed someone to believe he could be different. Jack gave a slow nod. "He's not cured, not yet, but he's listening to you." Tommy shrugged. "That's enough for now." Then, without warning, it all unraveled. Midnight froze mid-step, his ears pinning back. Something outside startled him, a shout, a loud bang, a loose sheet of metal crashing in the wind. The stallion reared, muscles exploding into panic. Tommy held tight to the rope, digging in his heels, voice calm. "It's okay. It's just noise." But the horse didn't hear him. He bucked, hooves flashing. One struck Tommy's shoulder, knocking him to the ground. The wind left his lungs in a sharp gasp. The rope slipped from his hand. Midnight bolted. The gate flew open, slamming against the post. Dust exploded behind him as he galloped into the open field. Tommy lay still, blinking against the pain, heart breaking in slow motion. Jack rushed forward. "Stay down, boy, don't move. That shoulder's not right." "I had him," Tommy whispered, eyes wet with more than pain. "He was starting to trust me." Jack knelt beside him. "That kind of trust don't vanish. If it was real, he'll come back." Tommy stared out across the fields, blinking back hot tears. "I'm not sure I would, if I were him," he whispered. Jack put a hand on his good shoulder, surprisingly gentle. "That horse ain't just scared of you, kid. He's scared of the whole world. And maybe, just maybe, you're the only one who's ever given him a reason to face it." As the sun began to sink toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the field, they sat in silence, both watching the tree line, waiting for a sign that trust once given wasn't truly lost. The barn was quiet again, but this time, the silence hurt. Tommy sat on the splintered steps out front, arm in a sling, face pale beneath a crust of dust and sweat. His shoulder throbbed with every heartbeat. The world felt dimmer without the sound of hooves inside, without that constant, restless presence, pacing just a few feet away. Midnight was gone. He'd run for the hills behind the old grazing field, somewhere deep in the wild scrub, where fences didn't reach. No one had seen him since. The sheriff had come by at dawn, not unkind but firm. "Time's up, son," he'd said. "We gave you your chance. You're lucky to be alive, and we can't risk someone else getting hurt." Tommy hadn't argued. What was there to say? Now the barn felt more like a grave. Not for a horse, but for everything that had almost mattered. Jack stood a few yards away, hands on his hips, eyes fixed on the horizon like he expected something to appear. He'd barely spoken since the fall, since they watched midnight disappear into the trees. He could have stayed gone, the old man muttered finally. But he didn't run like a horse that wanted to vanish. He ran like a horse that didn't know how to stay. Tommy looked up. It doesn't matter. The town won't give us another day, even if he came back now. Jack cut him off. It always matters. The wind picked up, dry and bitter, curling through the weeds. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. Tommy looked at the empty pen, at the lead rope still coiled on the post, limp and useless. He trusted me, Tommy said, voice cracking, and I let him down. Jack exhaled, slow and sharp. You gave him what nobody else did, a reason not to be afraid. You think that disappears in one bad moment. Tommy didn't reply. The sun climbed higher, stretching light across the valley. Birds fluttered overhead, and the distant sound of a truck door slamming broke the stillness. Someone down the road had begun their morning, unaware that two souls, one boy, one broken, had just about given up on the world. Then a sound cut through it all. Hoofbeats. Soft at first. Measured. Tommy froze. Jack turned slowly, eyes narrowing. From the tree line came a flicker of black, shimmering like ink in the heat. Midnight. He was walking, not running, steps slow and deliberate. His sides heaved gently, ribs rising and falling with effort, but his head was down and his ears weren't pinned. Tommy stood too fast, his shoulder lighting up with pain. He gritted his teeth, but didn't move toward the horse. He remembered, always let them choose. Midnight stopped a few feet from the gate. His eyes searched, landing on the boy. Tommy swallowed hard, his heart hammering. You came back. The horse stepped forward. One step, then another. Jack let out a breath like he hadn't taken one in minutes. Well, I'll be damned. Midnight walked straight to the gate, head low, breath warm against the post. Tommy unclipped the rope with one hand and reached up slowly. The stallion didn't flinch. He lowered his head and let the boy fasten the halter. You ready? Tommy whispered, because we don't have much time. He turned toward the field and began to walk, leading Midnight beside him. The sheriff would already be at the fairgrounds. The townspeople, too. If they didn't move fast, the chance to prove everything would vanish like smoke. Jack followed, muttering to himself. You sure about this, kid? Tommy nodded. It's now or never. By the time they reached the fairgrounds, a small crowd had gathered around the ring. The sheriff stood at the center, arms crossed, face hard to read. He looked up at the sound of hooves and froze. Murmurs rippled through the spectators. He came back. No one brought him in? That's the same horse. Tommy didn't look at them. He led Midnight through the gate and into the ring, unclipping the rope, but not mounting. Not yet. The sheriff stepped forward. You're late. He came back, Tommy said. That has to count for something. The sheriff looked at the stallion, calm, alert, unshaken, and nodded. Let's see what you've got. Tommy took a breath and placed a hand on Midnight's neck. The stallion stood still. Gently, Tommy swung his leg up and over, settling onto the horse's bare back. The weight shift made Midnight tense, but only for a second. Then, slowly, the boy nudged him forward. The ring fell quiet. Step by step, they moved. Not flawless, not elegant, but together. Tommy kept his touch light, his voice low, guiding more with feel than force. Midnight responded, not perfectly, but willingly. They circled once. Then again. On the third pass, Tommy urged him into a trot. The stallion obeyed, his hooves drumming softly against the dirt. The crowd was silent. Then, as they completed the final turn, a single pair of hands began to clap. Then another. Then the whole group erupted into applause. The sheriff raised his voice over the noise. You broke the rules, kid, but I'd be a fool not to admit what I just saw. Tommy slid down from Midnight's back, heart thudding. I didn't break him, he said. I just listened. Jack pushed through the crowd, his eyes shining. Your father would have been proud. Tommy looked up. I didn't do it for him. He turned toward Midnight, reaching up to rub the stallion's cheek. "I did it for us." The sheriff nodded slowly. "The horse stays. On one condition, you keep training. Keep learning. And if you ever need help," he glanced at Jack, "you've got it." Tommy smiled, small but real. Midnight nickered softly, leaning into the boy's hand. And for the first time in a long time, the world felt still. Not empty. Not waiting. Just right. They walked out of the ring together, side by side. The applause faded behind them, but it didn't matter. What mattered was ahead. If this story touched your heart, please consider subscribing. I bring true, heartfelt stories every day.